Hi, Facebook. Hi, people here via Zoom. Welcome, welcome. My name is Marina Manmolejo, and I'm the current EIR, which stands for Entrepreneur in Residence, at the New Haven Free Public Library. And this week, we're just hosting quick 30-minute conversations with local incredible entrepreneurs in New Haven to chat about our experiences with failure, right? Like how to fail forward, how to frame that in your mind, how to sit in your own emotions and not necessarily always try and pivot to positivity, but like sometimes you need to just kind of sit with it. So just getting everyone's strategies and approaches and experiences with their past failures in starting a business. So today we have Eric Ray, who's also a past EIR. So I'm going to let him introduce himself, and then Colleen can introduce herself as well. We have a good squad here ready to chat it up about failure. Eric?
Thank you, Marina. Yeah, my name is Eric. I am introduce myself. I'm always awkward with this, so I'll just shoot from the hip here. So I'll say, so born and raised in New Haven, from New Haven. Have been a serial entrepreneur like as long as I can remember. I mean, I think the first business I started was I was washing cars in my driveway at my mom's house. And I just like invited everyone, every adult that I knew, because it was like I was maybe like 13 or something, and I was like, I need money. So what am I good at? Like, what can I do? I was like, well, I can wash cars. So I had like every Saturday I had hosted like a car wash at my mom's house, and I'd get like a handful of cars, maybe 6 or 7 cars, and anyway, I'm getting off track already.
Did you have your regulars who would come?
Yeah. I had one, my godfather was the best. That he would come every week. He'd be like the first car there, and I honestly think, I'm not even kidding, I honestly think he came, he gave me money, I washed his car, and then he took his car to a car wash. I'm not even kidding. I think he just loved me and was like, sure, here's $5.
That's so sweet.
Oh, that's a good loyal customer right there.
Yeah, support network. We talked about that, how important that is.
It's so critical. And I was fortunate to have a good one. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. So that's me. I'm a musician, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a coach, a facilitator, an artist. I kind of just like whatever I feel like doing that morning, I go do that. That's sort of my philosophy.
Such freedom, right? Such freedom and liberation in being multi-talented and having society honor and seek out your services and your skills. Like, that's beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that. That's really like the most generous frame anyone has ever provided. Thank you. That's great.
Well, I was gonna say, we are lucky that we've had you as our past EIR, and we had you do our entrepreneur series. So I'm sure some viewers of the Facebook Live have seen your face before, and hopefully some entrepreneurs are joining us today that know if you are interested in knowing what you're doing and how you've persevered through failure. My name is Colleen Lynch. I'm a librarian at the NHFPL, and I work with the Exchange and Marina to do sort of entrepreneur programs for businesses and nonprofits. So take it away, Marina.
Yay. Well, so I kind of want to go off the beaten path, Eric, and ask you an initial question that wasn't necessarily on our list, but you're talking about being an entrepreneur like from the jump, right, at a really young age. And I think what is so inherent in entrepreneurship is failure. That's why we're talking about it today. How did you, as like a kid or someone young or new in the entrepreneurial phase, deal with failure? Because I think the maturity that comes with age and life experience helps you build up your tough skin to combat that. But what did it mean for you when you were younger to experience those failures, and how did that teach you and help you transition into how you view failure today?
Yeah, that's a good question. So here's what's interesting about that. I think, and not to sound sort of like brash or arrogant, but I'll say like the first 2 little sort of what I'll call micro businesses that I started as a child were successful, but they were successful because I was being propped up by this support system that y'all talked about, right? So like, I had a family that loved me. And so like, whenever I was doing a thing, washing cars or, selling dinners or cookies or whatever it was, I had a large enough family that they supported my endeavors. So I'll say I didn't really get my first, like what I would have considered my first real failure until I was probably a freshman in college. And as a freshman, the summer between my freshman year and sophomore year of college, I started a paint business, a paint company. And I was painting houses, doing exterior paint jobs for houses. And I was successful selling, but not successful completing the work. Which is sort of important, right? Like I probably would have been a even better salesman if I could point to all of these jobs that I had done that were amazing. But
you were a freshman in college. It's not like you had anything else going on, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, just only a freshman, at the University of Connecticut. And so I was like terrible. I was terrible at it, and I was a poor judge of character. I had this like huge heart. So if you just said to me like, "Oh, I really need this job," I'd be like, "Great, here's the job. Let's go." Like whether you had any painting skill or whatever, just sort of like, how hard is it to get the paint from here to there? Can't be that hard. Let's go. Plot twist: it's not easy. Painting houses, not easy. so don't, like for all the painters out there, kudos, amazing work. But how did I deal with that? I think, you said something earlier, Marina, that I resonate with, which is that like, I think I spent a lot of time kind of considering where I went wrong and what I was doing wrong. And it was not a good feeling. And there were like consequences. Like I had borrowed money, that money that I couldn't pay back because, I wasn't making any money on the paint jobs. And, what I would say is, let me back up a little bit. So I had this motto that I kind of, whenever I'm in a difficult situation, I kind of, it helps to ground me and orient me. And it's the motto is simple. If when everyone else is going right, I look left and then go straight. So here's what I mean by that. I'm not interested in following the crowd. So I don't want to go when everyone else is going right. I have no interest in going right, but I kind of want to know what's going on, like what's happening over there that everyone else is going right. So that kind of centers me. Then I look left, which is not to say like I'm an automatic contrarian either. It's not like I want to be opposite just for the sake of being opposite. So that's where the go straight comes from, because really what that says to me is I have always found a way to forge my own path. I have always taken what's given, taken what's out here and say, okay, what piece of this is me, speaks to me, who I am, my soul, my personality, my temperament. And that's the path that I end up taking. And that summer with the paint job, that was the first sort of time I had to put that to work, and be creative and think outside the box about what I'm gonna do, like how am I gonna make this work. What I ended up doing was actually selling the sold paint jobs. So I had already had these contracts. I couldn't complete them after a certain time. And so I sold that work to somebody else, which helped me pay the debt that I was in. And I sort of walked away hands-free. But it took me a while to come to that place. So I would say like one of the more important lessons from that failure was to make sure that I'm consistently checking in with my own values and my own perspectives about what it is I actually want from this juncture. And that's been incredibly empowering and helpful for me over the years.
And like you mentioned, learning when to walk away and not framing it as I'm quitting, I'm walking away, but the reframe is I'm finding someone else who can do this work at this time and facilitating that connection and that conversation. And I think so much of what you're talking about is emotional intelligence. And we don't have those conversations enough, at least in the spaces I'm at. Like, you are your business. If you are your walking brand, and if people like you, your support system will help get you to the top, right? So when you're selling cars, your uncle's coming through, your cousins are coming through and just getting their car washed because they support you as a person and as a business. And I think for folks who might have strained family or aren't necessarily convinced that the friends they have now are going to be the friends they have forever, like, that's okay. Just knowing that your relationships now and how you feed and grow and blossom those relationships really help feed your business in due time. So it's not just you on this path, but it's the people and the emotional intelligence that'll help get you there.
Yeah, that's spot on, Marina. I could not agree with you more. And I think, if I had to pick like one factor, it would be that it would be the network. It would be, the ability to build healthy, lasting, strong relationships. And that matters in a way that is almost incalculable. And I think, whoever is out here saying that they do it alone is lying. They're just lying to you, because it's just not possible. You need a network. You need people around you, not only in your immediate circle, but also, sort of extended people who understand your work, understand your sort of, I guess I'll come back to purpose, and say, like, when that resonates with people are happy to kind of get involved and jump in and help in whatever ways that they can.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a mentor? Because that seems like that's what you're talking about too, outside of your friends, outside of your family, having someone that you've gone to that's like seen everything from the third person perspective, but has that connection with you and like helped you at all?
Yeah, I've had several over the years. And I think, and honestly, I would say, I think I've learned something from just about everybody, right? Like I think everyone is a mentor in some way, shape, or form. Now, I've had like formal sort of mentors, like people who I'm saying, I dig how you think, I dig how you move in the world, like I want to learn more. I've had those, but the vast majority of those sort of mentoring relationships happened as a consequence of kind of like proximity. Just people that were in my circle, whether they were family or friends or something, that I'm like, that's an interesting thing. And honestly, I think to some degree, I probably develop relationships and friendships that way, which is like, I'm drawn to people who just have this interesting approach or a different way of thinking. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Like, I want to know more. So it turns out I befriend these folks, and we go take over the world together.
And I think that's so important to name the fact that mentors aren't this formalized relationship that needs like an email introduction and needs some sort of like system to attach itself to. Something that I've been actively trying to unlearn throughout this, entrepreneurial journey, is that mentors can be younger than you. They can quote unquote know less than you. They can quote unquote just come from such different avenues. And I think the power dynamic and expectations with the word mentor can be toxic if you aren't willing to listen and learn and love people who are unsurprising in their advice that they give to you.
Yeah, I love this. So I love this concept of listen, learn, and love, like that. So here's another guiding principle, right? This is like a guiding principle in my life, which is whenever I'm in some sort of like conflict with somebody, right? I was having some challenges with somebody, like just tension. I then come back to this notion of, how would I be in relationship with this person if I genuinely love them? If I loved this person, how would I interact? And this could be anybody. This is the person behind the counter at the DMV. This is, you know, somebody I've known for years. This is whoever, whatever individual. I'm in some tension or some conflict, and I'm trying to like, how do I navigate this? It's always that helps ground me again and bring me back to like, okay, to move from love and compassion rather than a sort of a positional state, right? Like, here's my position, and I'm gonna dig in.
That's like so cool.
I know. I love that.
Yeah. And Marina, it just makes me think of stuff we've talked about this week, and like how when people fail, they can feel really lonely. And when people have conflicts and failure isn't even their fault, it's like someone they're working with fault. That is something I'm sure both of you guys have dealt with, and it's hard.
Yeah. And like, Eric, can you use that same model, right? Of like pretending or imagining that you love this person you're frustrated with, use that framework in this next question where like talk about a failed relationship in the context of your business, right? Whether with like an employee or a co-founder or a vendor or someone in your entrepreneurial journey, and how did you use that framework of love and centering love in a resolution? Or maybe there was no resolution, right? Like kind of talk to me.
Well, all right. So it would be hard to give you a specific example, but I think here's what I can say. Like, there have been a handful of times over the years where I've had people who were working for me, whether they were like, I've never had employees, but they were, you know, like contractors. But, you know, I was the boss, right? And one way that I use that, I'll go back to the painting business, was I had hired a bunch of college kids like myself to get these jobs done. And there was one guy in particular who seemed like he was like really into it until it was actually time to paint houses, and then he would show up late, or you know, like like he would get there and not really do stuff. And you know, I had a couple of conversations with him, like the behavior didn't really change, but instead of just being like, you're fired, I never want to see you again, my approach was to say, how can I help you get to what you want? Because I don't think you actually want this.
Yep.
So like, what can I do to help you get there? But in exchange, I actually want you to help me find your replacement.
That's really cool.
That was my approach. He didn't help me find a replacement, but we were able to sort of amicably kind of go our own ways. And there were any number of ways that I could have dealt with that, but that felt right for me at the time, even though I felt like I was getting the short end of the stick.
But you didn't want to burn a bridge. That's really admirable.
Yeah, well, and it was not, was it a burn bridge? I mean, look, 2020 is hindsight, right? I could look back and pull all the lessons out, you know, from there. But I think at the time I was probably just conflict averse, to be all the way frank. It was probably just like, I don't want to fight with this dude. I just kind of want to like move on with life. But looking back on it now, I recognize that it was a much more compassionate way to approach things than just to say, you're fired, go have a have a good one.
And like a compassionate way to approach failure, which is something we haven't heard. That's great.
I love this. And so much about being a leader and being a founder is the inevitability of these hard conversations with people who are on your team. And I think that the way you're approaching this, people aren't used to it, right? Like on the receiving end, it's like, whoa, my boss is asking me like, am I happy? Do I feel like creative in this role? Do I feel like I'm living out my purpose? And that dialogue, folks don't have the muscle memory for it, unfortunately. And so I think your approach of like failure aversion and not trying to reach this end goal of failure in a relationship and leading with compassion is lovely.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I'm curious of how we're talking about relationships, right? Failures have affected your personal relationship, right? Like when you're talking about being a founder, you are your business. And Alakaya, who was chatting with us on Tuesday, said it so well. Like it's hard to take out your own identity when you're talking about your business because you are your business. So I say that
Yeah.
because like, how does it affect your personal life, right? When things are going wrong in your business, how do you cope with those two realities in two worlds?
Yeah. That's a good question. How do I deal with that? I think over the years, I have developed, these kind of like personal self-care kind of practices where when I come to the end of my day, I do my best to have that be the end of my workday and try to move on to some other aspect of my life. And I think this is a part of, when I had talked about like, I'm a coach, I'm a musician, like these, like, so I would go after a day of work, I'll come home and I'll play music.
Yeah.
As like, this is like this other thing that I'm interested in and that draws me. So I guess if I had to sort of distill that down, it's being able to say, while I am my business, that is not the only thing that I am. I am these other things too. I am a musician. I'm a son, a husband, an uncle. I am, a dog dad.
Yeah.
I am, like I'm all of these things, and I want to bring the same level of presence to my music as I do to my business. I think that's the thing that makes me successful, either as a musician or as a business person or as a coach or whatever else, is that when I'm there, I'm there. Like I'm all the way in.
Love
And
that.
not,
Sounds like you let
yeah.
these roles like not be colored by the failure of one role. Like if you have a failure that day at work, like it sounds like you step into these other roles and these are not failure roles, and it kind of helps you.
Yeah, I try.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like it's hard, of course, right? Like, so, when you start a business, it's your baby, and especially at the onset, it's so intense. There's so much work that goes in, day out. Like, so it's hard. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do, but I think over the years, over the time, I mean, look, I'll be frank. Like businesses come and go. I've started 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
6 or 7, I don't even know. I've lost count.
8, 9.
I've started a lot of businesses. They come and go. I'm still here, right? Like I'm still me. Like growing, evolving, changing, sure, all those things. But like I'm still me. So that's the thing that really gets the attention. It's like, how do I maintain myself? This other stuff doesn't solely define me. And I guess I just try to inhabit that energy.
That speaks to me so intimately, Eric, because right, you said it, like at the onset of starting a business, and with me it was Dream Kit. When my friends would text me like, "Hey Marina, what's up? How are you?" All I could say how I am was a reflection of how Dream Kit was doing. People like, "What's up? What's new?" And I'm like, and then I don't want to talk about Dream Kit all the time. Like I want to be my own person, and I want to like have these other things in my life that I can talk to family, friends, whoever's checking in with me about. But there was such a long period of time, like over a year, where I could only give those updates, and it felt exciting because you're attached to these successes. But then when things go wrong, which they inevitably will, your identity is also attached to these like bumps in the road. So it gets really tricky. And so I think that what you're saying is like, there's so much freedom in boundary setting and being like relentlessly protective of your time and saying all right, at 5 or 6 p.m., like I'm gonna, maybe it's not even done for the night, but it's like take a dinner break, go on a walk, like walk your dog, because you'll burn out. And if you burn out, your business burns out, and nobody wants that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that the boundary piece is like, it was like a magic trick when I learned to sort of do that in my life for real. And And yeah, so for me, it's Sundays. Sundays are like sacrosanct. I this is, so my motto is this: on Sundays particularly, but generally like in life, but on Sundays for sure. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. I'm not doing it.
I love that.
Yeah, and sometimes that hell yes is just like, I'm just sitting on the couch. That's
I'm
the
taking
hell
a
yes.
bath. That's mine. Hell yeah.
Right. Like that's it. There's nothing else that is more appealing to me right now than this thing that I'm doing. So yeah, I try to have that at least one day a week. But yeah, like, you know, I don't trust myself to just do this. So I also use tech. Like my phone shuts down after I think like 8 o'clock, 8 or 9 o'clock. No more calls come in. The phone doesn't even ring. It just goes straight to voicemail. I'll get to you the next day. That kind of thing where it's like, I need to clear out some space for my own process and mental health.
Yeah. And this, you're basically talking about how to avoid burnout, AKA these like failures, right?
Yep.
And
Resilience. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's resilience. And I'm curious too, like, are there any other resources, books or podcasts, anything, right, that you can recommend other folks to help avoid this internal exhaustion under the umbrella of like failure, right?
Yeah. Books, resources, and stuff. Let me think. I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's tons out there. I think my stuff has been like gathering over the years. So like, you know, I see a thing here or somebody I know is doing this. I'm like, oh, that's genius. I'm going to do that. So I think it's just, I think it's over time, because the other thing about this is that it's tremendously individual. You know, like it's like what you need. So I think like the closer you get to yourself, the easier it is to understand what you need in order to function at your best. But prime example of that is my partner is a gamer. She loves to play video games. Video games stress me out. They make me they
I can't do this.
I can't. Right? It's just like this is not enjoyable. I'm more stressed out than when I sat down. But I could listen to albums. I could shut the lights down, put headphones on, and just listen to an album like front to back, or play music, or whatever, any number of things. I like movies. I like binge watching, my favorite shows. Like, those are the things that actually smooth me out.
Yeah, because you're not actively doing something, then you're like appreciating it and like
like taking in a piece of art.
The passive activities are so wonderful when your whole day is like stimulated and like to a certain extent performative, right? You're pitching or you're talking to investors or lawyers, and it's like
for sure,
absorb information is funny.
And it sounds like you're always on the lookout for this. Like you sound like someone that's always looking for something that's going to help you, or something that's interesting.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I there's a handful of things that I'm really active with. So I'm a very active journaler, which means that I'm fairly consistently engaged in self-examination.
Yeah.
Right. And just kind of like debriefing the day, looking back on the week and thinking, what are some high points and some low points from the week? And then extracting the lessons from that and doing my best to kind of put that to work. And what's great about that for me is that there's a sort of like quick turnaround times where I can experience something, unpleasant on Thursday. Friday, I might write about it and discover like, what if I tried this instead? And then when the next time that thing happens, like Tuesday of the next week, it's fresh. And I also have a thing as sort of like counterpoint to let me try this, and then let me try that, because that's what life is, right? Like it's just a constant iteration of learning.
Yeah. And your approach and like mastery of this self-reflective mindset is really impressive. And I also want to plug like your services, right? You mentioned you were a coach, and I'm not sure if those are like paid services, but for folks listening now or later, like Eric is on it, right? Like he knows what he's
around New Haven. Yeah.
He's around like access his powerful brain, because I always get frustrated listening on panels when people are like, oh, it's individual. You just got to figure out you got to know yourself or figure out what works for you. I'm like, yeah. And I don't know what works for me. So like having a soundboard like Eric or me, I have office hours, right, to talk through these things. Like just because it's individual doesn't mean that you can't reach your ultimate solution.
Right. So. Yeah. Well, and you know what, like, here's what I appreciate too. Because on the other side, like I hear what you're saying. And on the other side of the coin, I appreciate people who don't claim to have the answers for me.
Yeah.
Because I actually don't want that. I don't want your version of the answer for me. I want to figure out mine, because that, for me, that's where the real learning is. If I just give you the thing, you try it, it works, kinda, it's not really an answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate, someone who can reflect back what they're hearing and what they're seeing, while at the same time being spacious, allowing for me to fill some of that space when I'm engaged with them, right? And so that's what I strive for when I'm coaching people, which is to say, look, so here are some things that have worked. Here are some things I've heard other people talk about. You got to find your thing. Like journaling is not for everybody, but there's another way to go about that and be introspective with yourself.
That's how I feel about mindfulness. Everyone's like mindfulness, meditation. I can't do it. I've tried a million times, but it works for a lot of other people. And so it's like, that speaks to me what you're saying.
Yeah, that's it's so critically important, and everybody brings different, sort of skills and different ideas to the table. And that's where the sort of creativity piece is. This earlier thing I talked about, left, right, go straight, like that for me is what gets me thinking creatively again. It's what gets me saying, okay, here's what's important to me. Here's the situations on the ground. What can I do to sort of synthesize these things into something, a direction that I want to go in? And that's kind of how I elect to move through the world. And it's, so far so good.
Yeah, it's just an all powerful presence and an observation of the world. I really appreciate that. I think
I got to jump in and just say this, because I was just talking about this with my mom the other day. So my name is Eric, and Eric actually means ever powerful. Having this conversation with my mom the other day, because I was like, where did this come? Like, where did my name come from? Why did you pick this or whatever? It was arbitrary. She was just, I just like the name. I was like, you didn't know any cool Erics? And she was like, nah, I just like the name. I thought it was cool. I was like, oh, all right, cool. I guess I'll take. I was hoping for like a real, some deep. It was my college roommate who I love it. It was not that. It was like
it rolled off the tongue.
Right. It was fair enough.
That's funny. Eric, in wrapping this up, I have one last question for you, which is, if you can be the tiny voice on someone's shoulder who is feeling so overwhelmed and buried in this like accumulative failures that they're experiencing, how would you help them think through the solution of getting out and shifting mindset?
Yeah. All right. So the first thing, it's like a process, I think, but the first part would be, I would just encourage people to trust themselves. Just trust, trust your own knowing. The world needs exactly what you have, but you've just got to figure out how to make that work in the world. But the world definitely needs what you have. So the first piece is trusting yourself, and that's really speaking to like soul and confidence and being able to kind of like dig deep and know that just because you failed doesn't mean bad. It doesn't mean you're bad. The second thing would be, to pull the lessons from the failure, and also to know that that's actually not a singular event. That's not a sit down and journal and you pull all the lessons. It is time. It takes time and energy and effort and work. And that introspection that you carry along with you. So there are still lessons that I'm pulling from things that happened 3 and 4 and 5 years ago.
Wow.
And so when you think about it like that, you're getting, you know, college level, master's level, doctorate level education every day.
Yeah.
Every day there is something there for you to build on. And I find that exciting. I don't know, maybe not everybody does, but I think it offers a glimmer of light in the midst of a perceived failure. Because it really is, you know, perceptions. Businesses open and close every day.
Right.
You know, people, all kinds of stuff happens to people. But what determines whether or not it's a failure is you, actually. You're the one that gets to decide how you think about failure.
Yeah.
And failure can, I mean, like it's well documented, like anybody, any person who's achieved anything in their life will tell you their most important moments were the moments that they failed.
I've read that before. Yeah, definitely.
You learn so much more
Right.
from the valleys than you do from the mountain peaks.
Yeah.
It's great when you get to the peak. It's awesome. It's an amazing feeling, but you learn significantly more from when you fall than you do any other time.
Preach. That's so, I mean, it's so real, right? Like that's relatable.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing this whole series, honestly, is like people that are experiencing failure, how to reframe that, I love that you said, like, it's like failure is not just a failure. It's like how you relate to it, how you react to it, how you frame that. It's like you decide if it's a failure or not.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's the real lesson.
You're a powerful presence in the community, Eric. And so when people can hear you putting language to what your previous, you know, quote unquote failures are and how you've learned from it, like that's exciting to see someone who is a leader acknowledge this, right? So this was
you know what? Here's the thing. I think, you know, I'll leave you with this. I think people always see what you've become, but they never see the becoming.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That and I think that part of it, I mean, it's a way that we can be more transparent, but like, yeah, that it's easy to see when the person has quote unquote arrived and think like they just woke up like that, like they just fell out of bed and like here they were. And it's like, no, man, people work hard, they work their tails off to get to this spot, and precious few of us actually get to witness that part of it.
Because it's vulnerable and it's scary, and society hasn't quantified this failure and this middle ground as something that is useful, right? And so because we're ashamed, we don't really talk about it or share it with folks, when that's such a metric of strength and resilience that people are not really naming. So
for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're going to cut this off. Thank you so much, Eric. This has been amazing. I love this series. This has been so good. And it's great to see you again. And I hope everyone tunes in tomorrow for our last one. Marina, thank you for being here and hosting this.
Pleasure.
Say Eric, goodbye.
You're a joy, Eric. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And best of luck. Look forward to seeing how the kit unfolds.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye.